At 0150 on May 19, 1944, Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton stood in the cramped Combat Information Center of USS England, watching his sonar operator track a contact moving at 6 knots beneath the black waters north of Bougainville. 37 years old, first war patrol as commanding officer, 0 submarine kills. The Japanese Imperial Navy had stationed 7 submarines in a scouting line across the route to the Marianas. England was a Buckley-class destroyer escort, 77 feet shorter than a fleet destroyer, half the crew, built for one purpose, hunting submarines. But the weapon that made her different sat mounted on her foredeck, 24 spigot mortars arranged in rows. The British called it Hedgehog. The projectiles fired 200 yards ahead of the ship in a circular pattern. Contact fuses. They only exploded if they hit something solid. Depth charges had been killing submarines for 3 decades. Roll them off the stern, set the hydrostatic fuse for estimated depth, hope the submarine was still there when the charges reached detonation depth. The statistics told a brutal story. British forces had launched 5,174 depth charge attacks during the war. 85 confirmed kills. 1 kill for every 60 attacks. By the time the charges sank, submarines had already moved. The explosions disturbed the water so badly that sonar became useless for 15 minutes. Submarines escaped in the chaos. Hedgehog changed everything. Forward throwing. Maintain sonar contact throughout the attack. 65-pound projectiles with 35 pounds of torpex each. Silent misses. No water disturbance. No lost contact. But the numbers were still being proven. 5% success rate in early trials. Crews didn't trust it. Captains preferred the familiar thunder of depth charges. Pendleton trusted numbers. 1 Hedgehog kill for every 5 attacks versus 1 depth charge kill for every 80. The mathematics were simple. Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had decoded Japanese submarine I-16's transmission 4 days earlier. Destination: Bougainville. Arrival time: 2200 hours May 19th. The intelligence was perfect. England and 2 sister ships had positioned themselves along I-16's route. Now the contact was real. If you want to see if Pendleton's new weapon actually worked against Japanese submarines, hit that like button right now, and subscribe, because what happens next is insane. Back to Pendleton. The sonar operator called out the range. 1,500 yards. I-16 was diving. Standard Japanese evasion. Radical turns, changing depth. The submarine commander knew he was being hunted. Pendleton ordered the first Hedgehog attack at 1341. 24 projectiles arced through the afternoon sky, splashed into the Pacific, sank at 23 feet per second. Silence. Miss. I-16 had turned. The second attack scored 1 hit at 130 feet. The explosion lifted England's bow. Not enough. Third attack missed. The fathometer revealed the problem. I-16 had gone deep, 325 feet, deeper than Pendleton had estimated. Fourth attack. I-16 turned inside the pattern. Another miss. 1433. Fifth attack. 4 detonations. Then 6. A massive underwater explosion followed. The blast lifted England's stern clear out of the water, knocked sailors off their feet. 20 minutes later, debris began surfacing. Oil, wood, fabric. I-16 was gone. 107 men dead. But Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had decoded another message. 7 more Japanese submarines were stationed in a patrol line north of the Admiralty Islands, and England was sailing straight toward them. Commander Hamilton Haynes received the decoded intelligence at Tulagi on May 20th. Japanese 7th Submarine Squadron had deployed 7 Type KO submarines along a line designated NA. The submarines were positioned at precise intervals from Truk Island to the waters west of Manus. RO-104, RO-105, RO-106, RO-108, RO-109, RO-112, RO-116. Each submarine carried 56 crew members. Their mission? Detect American carrier task forces moving toward the Marianas or Palau Islands. Admiral Soemu Toyota needed to know where the Americans would strike next. The submarines were his eyes. Haynes ordered England to join destroyer escorts George and Raby. 3 ships, 7 targets. The odds seemed impossible, but Pendleton had proven something in that first engagement with I-16. 5 Hedgehog attacks, 1 kill. 20% success rate. 4 times better than the early trials. The weapon worked. The crew trusted it now. They had heard the explosions, watched the debris surface, counted the oil slicks spreading across the Pacific. The hunting group departed Purvis Bay on May 21st. Standard line abreast formation. 16,000 yards between ships during darkness. Radar sweeps every 30 seconds. Sonar pinging continuously. The Japanese submarines were maintaining radio silence now. No more transmissions to decode. No more precise coordinates. The hunter-killer group would have to find them the old way. Electronic detection. Patience. Mathematics. Pendleton studied the charts in his cabin. The NA line stretched across Admiral Halsey's previously used routes. The Japanese were predictable. Stationed submarines where American forces had moved before. Hoped the Americans moved there again. But Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had given the Americans an advantage the Japanese didn't know existed. The Americans knew exactly where the picket line was positioned. The question was timing. Submarine patrol patterns were predictable. Surface at night to recharge batteries, dive at dawn, run submerged during daylight, surface again after sunset.
The window for radar detection was narrow. Submarines were vulnerable on the surface, but they were fast. A submarine commander could dive in 60 seconds, be at 200 feet depth in 3 minutes, disappear into the black water. England's crew had drilled for this. Sonar operators could track a diving submarine, calculate depth, estimate speed, predict position. The Hedgehog launchers could be loaded and fired in 90 seconds. 24 projectiles, 130-foot circle, 30 feet deep. Every launch was a gamble. Contact fuses meant certainty. If the projectiles exploded, they hit something. If they stayed silent, they missed. The mathematics were simple but brutal. 7 submarines, 56 men per submarine, 392 Japanese sailors total. 1 Hedgehog attack could kill them all in 9 seconds. At 0350 on May 22nd, George's radar detected a surface contact at 15,000 yards. The first submarine. RO-106 was recharging her batteries. She never saw the destroyer escorts coming. George's searchlight caught RO-106 on the surface. The submarine crashed dove immediately. Seawater flooded her ballast tanks. Her bow angled down. Within 90 seconds, she was submerged. George fired Hedgehog at 0415. 24 projectiles splashed into the dark water. Silence. Miss. England regained sonar contact at 0425. Range, 1,400 yards. RO-106 was running deep, making radical turns. The Japanese commander knew the tactics. Turn inside the attack pattern, change depth constantly, make the Americans guess. Pendleton didn't guess. His sonar operator tracked every turn, called out depth changes, range, bearing. The data fed directly to the Hedgehog firing solution. First attack, missed. RO-106 had turned 30 degrees during the projectile's sink time. 9 seconds was enough for a submarine to move 150 feet. Second attack at 0501. 24 projectiles formed their circular pattern, sank through the darkness. 3 detonations, then a massive underwater explosion. The pressure wave rolled across the surface. England's hull shuddered. George and Raby felt it 4,000 yards away. At sunrise, the oil slick was half a mile wide. Debris floating, metal fragments, wood. No survivors. Kill number 2. 24 hours after I-16, the 3 destroyer escorts reformed their line, 16,000 yard spacing, continued northeast along the NA line. The next submarine was out there, RO-104, or RO-105, or any of the remaining 5. Japanese submarine commanders maintained strict radio silence, but they surfaced on predictable schedules. Batteries required recharging. Electric motors needed power. Diesel engines needed air. At 0600 on May 23rd,
Raby's radar detected another surface contact. Range, 22,000 yards. The contact dove before identification. The Japanese commander had learned something from Row 106's death. Stay deep. Make them guess your depth. Raby fired 4 Hedgehog attacks starting at 0617. All misses. Row 104 was turning inside the patterns. George tried next. First attack missed at 0717. Second, third, fourth attacks all missed between 0730 and 0810. The Japanese submarine commander was good. Every time projectiles splashed above him, he turned, changed depth, made the mathematics impossible. Division Commander Haynes watched England approach for her turn. Pendleton's crew had 2 kills. Raby and George had none. The pattern was becoming clear. England's sonar operators were better, or her Hedgehog crews were faster, or Pendleton's firing solutions were more accurate. Whatever the reason, England was the killer in this hunting group. Haynes radioed 5 words that would become Navy legend. Oh hell, go ahead, England. Pendleton's first Hedgehog attack missed. Row 104 turned. But the second attack at 0834 scored 10 detonations, maybe 12. The explosions merged into one continuous roar. Breaking up noises followed. Metal tearing. Bulkheads collapsing. Then a major underwater explosion 3 minutes later. The submarine's batteries had ruptured. Oil and debris surfaced at 10:45. Kill number 3. 72 hours. 3 submarines. 163 Japanese sailors dead. And England still had 4 more targets ahead. At 0120 on May 24th, George's radar detected Row 116 on the surface. Range 15,000 yards. The submarine dove at 0130. England established sonar contact at 0150. The pattern was repeating. Radar detection, crash dive. Sonar tracking, Hedgehog attack. But Row 116's commander had changed tactics. He went shallow, 150 feet. Most submarine commanders dove deep, 300 feet, 400 feet. Put maximum water between them and the surface. Maximum cushion against explosions. Row 116's commander did the opposite. Stayed shallow, made sharp turns. Bet that the Americans would set their firing solutions for deep targets. He bet wrong. Pendleton's sonar operator called out the shallow depth. The Hedgehog firing solution adjusted instantly. First attack at 0214. 3 detonations, maybe 5. Not the massive explosion of previous kills. No battery rupture. Just the sound of 65-pound projectiles punching through pressure hull at 723 feet per second, creating 3-inch holes. At 150 feet depth, seawater enters a submarine at 400 gallons per minute through a 3-inch hole. Breaking up noises weren't loud, just the groan of metal under pressure. The submarine settled deeper. More holes meant more water. More water meant more weight. More weight meant deeper. At 300 feet, the pressure increased. More water flooded in. The temperature inside rose, 200 degrees, 300 degrees. The crew's lungs seared. Within 6 minutes, everyone aboard was dead. The submarine continued sinking. Oil and debris surfaced at 0702 after sunrise. Small quantity. The oil slick expanded over the next 24 hours, several square miles. 56 more Japanese sailors gone. Kill number 4. 5 days, 4 submarines. Word reached Admiral Ernest King at the Navy Department in Washington, Chief of Naval Operations, the man who commanded every ship in the United States Navy. King read the action reports. 1 destroyer escort, 4 confirmed kills, 5 days. Using a weapon most captains didn't trust. King sent a message to 3rd Fleet. Simple, direct. There'll always be an England in the United States Navy. The phrase spread through the Pacific Fleet within hours. England was becoming famous, but fame brought attention, and attention brought new orders. On May 25th, Admiral Halsey wanted England pulled from submarine hunting, reassign her to carrier escort duty. Too valuable to risk. 4 kills made her crew experienced. Experienced crews were rare. Protect the asset. Commander Haynes refused. 3 submarines remained on the NA line: Row 105, Row 108, Row 109. England had killed 4 in 5 days. The mathematics said she could kill the remaining 3 in 3 more days. Pull her now and the mission stayed incomplete. Japanese submarines would continue reporting American fleet movements. The intelligence advantage would be lost. Halsey agreed to one more patrol. At 23:03 on May 26th, Raby gained radar contact on Row 108 at 15,000 yards, 110 nautical miles northeast of Seadler Harbor. The submarine dove. England gained sonar contact at 1,650 yards. The Japanese commander made the same mistake as Row 116, stayed shallow, made radical turns, believed the Americans couldn't track him. Pendleton's crew had tracked 4 submarines before this one. They knew every evasion tactic, every depth change, every turn pattern. Raby vectored in for the kill, but missed with Hedgehog. Division Commander Haynes gave the order again. Go ahead, England.
23:23. England commenced Hedgehog attack on Row 108. 4 projectiles hit, maybe 6. The explosions came so close together they sounded like one. Row 108 broke apart immediately. No slow flooding, no gradual sinking. The pressure hull ruptured at multiple points simultaneously. The submarine imploded. 56 men died in less than 3 seconds. Faster than they could process what was happening. Kill number 5. 6 days, 5 submarines, 279 Japanese sailors dead. At Japanese Imperial Navy headquarters in Tokyo, Admiral Toyota reviewed the patrol reports. 7 submarines deployed to the NA line, 5 submarines missing. No distress calls, no emergency transmissions, just silence. 1 submarine every 24 hours. The pattern was obvious. Something was killing his submarines. Something fast. Something accurate. Something the submarine commanders couldn't evade. Toyota issued new orders to the remaining submarines. Row 105 and Row 109 received the transmission on May 27th. New patrol depth, 400 feet minimum. New surface protocol, no battery recharging unless absolutely necessary. New evasion tactic, run silent at first detection. No radical maneuvers. Radical maneuvers made noise. Noise gave sonar operators better tracking data. The Japanese were learning, but they were learning from dead men's mistakes. England, George, and Raby continued northeast. The NA line had 2 submarines left, somewhere in 3,000 square miles of ocean. The Americans had the advantage. Fleet Radio Unit Pacific was still intercepting Japanese transmissions. Every radio message gave position data. Every position report revealed patrol patterns. But the tactical situation was changing. 5 kills had depleted England's Hedgehog ammunition. Each attack fired 24 projectiles. 5 attacks meant 120 projectiles expended. England carried 240 rounds total. She had 120 remaining. 5 more attacks, maybe 6 if the crew was careful. And the Japanese submarines were adapting. On May 30th, George detected Row 105 on radar at 21:45. The submarine dove immediately. But this time the Japanese commander did something different. He went deep, 400 feet, then stopped all engines. Complete silence. No propeller noise, no machinery vibration, nothing for sonar to detect. England established contact at 2,200 yards. Weak signal, intermittent. The submarine was barely moving. Sonar operators called it a knuckle, a patch of disturbed water that created false returns. The submarine could be anywhere within 200 yards of the signal. Pendleton faced a choice. Fire Hedgehog at a weak contact and probably miss. Waste 24 precious projectiles. Or wait for the submarine to move. Give up tactical advantage. Let the Japanese commander choose when to run. He chose to wait. 4 hours passed. The submarine stayed silent. Then at 02:30 on May 31st, the signal strengthened. Row 105 was moving. Battery power was running out. The electric motors needed recharging.
The commander had no choice. He had to surface soon or die anyway. But he had one more tactic. One final desperate gamble that might work. Row 105's commander surfaced at 03:15 on May 31st, but not where England expected. The submarine had drifted with the current during those 4 silent hours, moved 3 miles from her last known position. George's radar caught her at 13,000 yards. Wrong direction, wrong bearing. The hunting group had been searching the wrong grid square. By the time England turned toward the new contact, Row 105 had already crash dove. The Japanese commander had bought himself 90 seconds of battery charging, 90 seconds of diesel engine time, enough to add 10% power to his depleted batteries, enough to run. England established sonar contact at 03:45. Row 105 was running deep and fast, 6 knots, heading northeast, away from the hunting group. The Japanese commander was good, maybe the best they had faced. He had studied the previous attacks, learned from 5 dead submarines, knew that staying deep and running fast made Hedgehog attacks difficult. The problem was mathematics. Hedgehog projectiles sank at 23 feet per second. At 400 feet depth, projectiles took 17 seconds to reach target depth. In 17 seconds, a submarine moving at 6 knots traveled 170 feet. The firing solution required predicting where the submarine would be in 17 seconds. Predict wrong, and the circular pattern missed completely. Pendleton's first Hedgehog attack at 0405 missed by 200 feet. Row 105 had turned during the projectile's descent. Second attack at 0423 missed by 100 feet. Better prediction, but still wrong. The submarine was varying her speed, 6 knots, then 4 knots, then 6 knots again, making the mathematics impossible. England had fired 48 projectiles. 120 minus 48 equals 72 projectiles remaining. 3 more attacks. Maybe 3.5 if the crew loaded carefully. 3 more chances to kill Row 105 before the ammunition ran out. Division Commander Haynes watched from George. This engagement was different. The previous 5 submarines had died quickly. 2 attacks. 3 attacks maximum. Row 105 had survived 2 attacks, was heading toward a 3rd, maybe a 4th. The Japanese commander was winning the mathematics game. At 0447, Pendleton's sonar operator detected a pattern. Row 105 turned every 4 minutes. 30 degrees to port, then 30 degrees to starboard, back and forth. The pattern was consistent, predictable. The Japanese commander thought he was being random, but humans aren't random. They fall into patterns. Pendleton adjusted the firing solution, predicted the turn, led the target by 200 feet. Third Hedgehog attack at 0508. 24 projectiles splashed into the Pacific, sank into darkness. 4 detonations, maybe 5. Not the massive explosion of previous kills. RO 105's pressure hull was breached, but not destroyed. The submarine continued moving, flooding, but not sinking. The Japanese commander was executing emergency procedures. Blow ballast tanks, surface, abandon ship, save the crew. But England's 4th attack at 0532 hit with 8 detonations. The submarine broke apart. Emergency blow stopped. The crew never reached the surface. Oil and debris appeared at 0615 after sunrise. Kill number 6. 12 days. 6 submarines. 335 Japanese sailors dead. Admiral Halsey received the report at 3rd Fleet Headquarters. 6 submarines in 12 days. 1 destroyer escort. 1 weapon system that most captains didn't trust. The record was unprecedented, unmatched, impossible to believe. But 1 submarine remained, RO 109. Admiral Halsey issued new orders on June 1st. Pull England from submarine hunting immediately. 6 kills was enough. The destroyer escort had proven the Hedgehog system, proven it beyond any doubt. Every destroyer escort in the Pacific Fleet would receive updated training. updated tactics, updated firing solutions based on England's action reports. But Row 109 was never found. The submarine had received Toyota's warning after Row 108 died, abandoned her patrol station, ran deep and silent toward Truk. She survived the war, surrendered in August 1945. Her crew learned about the NA Line massacre months later, learned that 6 of their sister submarines had been destroyed in 12 days by one ship, using a weapon they had never heard of. The Presidential Unit Citation arrived in July, one of only 3 destroyer escorts to receive the honor during the entire war. The citation read simply, "For extraordinary heroism in action against enemy Japanese submarines." The words didn't capture what England's crew had accomplished. The mathematics did. British forces had launched 5,174 depth charge attacks during the war, 85 confirmed kills, 1.6% success rate. Hedgehog attacks before England's patrol showed 5% success rate, 26 attacks for every kill. England made her record with far better numbers. 6 submarines, approximately 15 total Hedgehog attacks, 40% success rate, 25 times more effective than depth charges, 8 times more effective than the Hedgehog average. The weapon system became standard on every destroyer escort by September 1944. Training protocols changed across the fleet. Sonar operators studied England's tracking techniques. Hedgehog crews practiced England's loading procedures. Fire control officers memorized England's firing solutions. In the Atlantic, Hedgehog sank 47 German U-boats by war's end.
268 attacks, 47 kills, 17.5% success rate. Still the best anti-submarine weapon of the war. But no ship matched England's 12-day record. Not in the Atlantic, not in the Pacific, not in any theater. Lieutenant Commander Pendleton received the Navy Cross in August, single decoration for 6 submarines. The citation mentioned his tactical brilliance, his crew's discipline, the weapon system's effectiveness. But it didn't mention the thing that mattered most: mathematics. Pendleton had trusted numbers when other captains trusted tradition. He had calculated firing solutions while others relied on experience. He had predicted submarine movements while others guessed. The numbers had been right. England continued escort duty through summer 1944. Convoy protection, carrier screening, anti-submarine patrols. She never found another submarine. Never fired Hedgehog in combat again. On October 31st, 1944, kamikaze aircraft hit England off Leyte Gulf. The bomb penetrated the forward engine room, killed 37 crew members, wounded 25 more. The damage was catastrophic. Repairs would take 6 months, cost more than building a new ship. The Navy decided England wasn't worth saving. She was towed to Manus Island, stripped of useful equipment, sold for scrap. In November 1946, cut apart in a salvage yard. The ship that had sunk 6 submarines in 12 days ended her life as razor blades and tin cans. But the record stood, still stands today. No ship has matched it. 80 years later, England remains the greatest submarine killer in naval history. Walton Pendleton survived the war, promoted to commander, given command of an escort division in Alaska, spent the final year of the war hunting Japanese submarines in the North Pacific. Never found any. The war ended in August 1945. Pendleton retired from the Navy in 1961 after 34 years of service. Died in 1973 at age 66. Buried at Arlington National Cemetery. His gravestone mentions the Navy Cross. Doesn't mention the 6 submarines. Doesn't mention the 12 days that changed naval warfare. The Navy kept its promise. Sort of. In October 1960, guided missile destroyer leader USS England was commissioned. Hull number DLG-22. Later reclassified as CG-22. Served from 1962 until 1994. 32 years. Longer than the original England lasted. But when CG-22 was decommissioned, the name England disappeared from the fleet. Admiral King's promise? Broken.
There hasn't been a USS England since 1994. The original Hedgehog launcher sits in storage at the National Museum of the United States Navy in Washington, D.C. Rusted. Forgotten. Most visitors walk past without noticing. The placard mentions the weapon's success rate, doesn't mention England, doesn't mention Pendleton, doesn't mention the 12 days that proved the system worked. Japanese records recovered after the war confirmed the 6 kills. I-16, RO-106, RO-104, RO-116, RO-108, RO-105. Each submarine's final position matched England's attack coordinates exactly. 335 sailors confirmed dead. The Japanese Navy never understood what killed them so fast. Their action reports mentioned explosions above, flooding below, death within minutes. But nobody survived to describe the circular pattern of projectiles, the contact fuses, the forward-throwing mortars that maintained sonar contact throughout the attack. The British developed Hedgehog. The Americans perfected it. England proved it. But history remembers aircraft carriers, battleships, fleet destroyers, the big ships with the big guns. Destroyer escorts were expendable, cheap to build, easy to replace. 700 built during the war,
Most scrapped within 5 years of peace.
England lasted 2 years after the war ended, scrapped at age 2.5. The ship that sank 6 submarines in 12 days wasn't worth the metal she was made from. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every week. Stories about sailors who trusted mathematics over tradition. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from Texas, Germany, Australia, United States? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure USS England and her crew don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.